Hello everyone, friends! Urgent news from the United States. And this news, or rather the decision that has already been made, could affect and truly change the fate of hundreds of thousands of refugees who want to seek asylum in the United States, who have submitted applications. USCIS has officially announced that it is suspending the review of all asylum cases. And this doesn't just concern Afghans, whom Donald Trump mentioned recently. It applies to absolutely all cases. Literally all cases, from any country and at any stage. And this was personally confirmed by the head of the agency, Joseph Edlow, on the social network X. USCIS has suspended all decisions on cases, on granting asylum until we are absolutely certain that every single foreign national has been thoroughly and completely vetted and has undergone the most comprehensive and rigorous security screening possible, without any exceptions. The safety of the American people always comes first, he wrote. So all decisions regarding asylum are now, as of the moment he made this announcement on his X social media account, on hold. All of them. There is no information on how long this will last, meaning it is for an indefinite period. That much we know for sure. This also applies both to new applications that people have submitted and to refugees who have already had their interviews for their applications. Why did this happen? Well, friends, it's not hard to guess, because as we can see, American media are already reporting that this decision is connected to the recent attack, the shooting in Washington near the White House, in which the suspect turned out to be an Afghan refugee who entered the United States under the Humanitarian Protection Program. He was cooperating there at the time when there was an American presence in Afghanistan. He cooperated with the CIA. Accordingly, it's clear that he was among the first to be evacuated to the United States. Because if he had fallen into the hands of the Taliban, he and his family would have definitely faced, let's put it this way, death, a death sentence, and so on. So as for his motives, we still don't know them yet. I think that in the future, in any case, we will find out about this. We are keeping an eye on it. After this incident, after this tragedy, I would say, Donald Trump demanded a review of the security procedures and the rules for admitting refugees into the United States. That is, as I already mentioned, this concerns not only so-called dangerous countries. This pause applies to absolutely all refugees, regardless of which country they are from or from which country they entered the United States. Now, which category of refugees will this affect? This will affect refugees who are applying for asylum for the first time. That's one, and also those refugees who have already applied. Those who have filed an asylum application and are waiting for an interview with officers. It also includes those who have already had their interview but have not yet received a decision on their application. In other words, they still don't know whether they will be approved or denied, regardless of how their interview went. And it also applies to those who have already had their interview and received a positive result. That is, the person passed the interview successfully and was about to be granted refugee status, meaning official approval from the authorities. But the decision has not yet been made. It's just about ready. You could say it's almost there. Everything is on hold for everyone, a complete pause, regardless of what stage the asylum application review is at. Let me remind you, friends, that there are about 1,100,000 cases currently being processed for refugee status in the United States. So hundreds of thousands. Refugees risk being left without status and therefore without work authorization, leaving them in legal limbo, in the same status as Ukrainian citizens are in right now. TPS holders who have officially applied to extend this temporary protected status but have not yet received the crucial official extension document are now at significant risk from vigilant ICE officers who can simply stop and detain them. Somewhere on the street they might be asked for documents, the person shows their documents and the officer says, "You don't have an official extension yet," detains them and can immediately deport them. This is happening to Ukrainians right now. And so many Ukrainians, precisely for this reason, because they don't have legal status, people are in a kind of legal limbo as if they have status, but in reality they don't, so this can be used against them. People have started leaving the United States. They are going to Europe, Canada, Latin America, and so on. Now, what are the possible consequences? In the short term and in the medium term. In the short term, cases will be put on hold and remain paused for an indefinite period, as I already mentioned. In other words, there is no indication of when all this will resume. Accordingly, people will be denied extensions of their work permits. And as a result, this will lead to an increase in the number of deportation cases and deportation proceedings. Because in any case, such individuals will be detained by ICE officers. I think the presence of ICE officers will only increase. People will be detained, and since they have no status, there's nothing you can explain to anyone. And they will simply be deported from the US. That's in the short term. Now, in the medium term, there is a possible review by America of the criteria for granting asylum. But this is a lengthy and complicated process because changes need to be made to the legislation and so on. Perhaps there will be some adjustments and internal documents will be adopted. Then, the introduction of additional security screening stages, that will definitely happen. I think this will be implemented very seriously, and specific checks will be developed on how to screen potential asylum seekers for all these aspects, and possibly also mass rejections, based on the principle of safety first. That is, officials will be instructed that if they have even the slightest doubt about something, a rejection will follow. So even if a person's case is 99% solid, yes. If an official sees some inconsistency in their case in some events, or if some document is missing, that's it, rejections will be issued instantly. Most likely, that's exactly how it will be. If the asylum applicant doesn't have any other grounds, can't resolve things in some other way, like through family, work, or by obtaining a temporary status, there are different options, but we won't go into that now. Then, of course, they're at risk of being denied asylum, or even worse, if they're left in some kind of legally suspended, uncertain state, they could simply be caught and have their documents checked, as I mentioned before. That's it. If they don't have documents, depending on who stops them, they'll be deported. That's all there is to it. I think this pause will last at least several months. That's 100% certain. In other words, this pause won't be lifted quickly. That's what I think. By the way, write in the comments what you think. How long do you think this will drag on? People from countries with increased risks will, I think, be subject to immediate security measures and checks that have now been developed. And all these refugees will definitely undergo additional security screening. And accordingly, the number of rejections will increase. That's 100% certain. And when this procedure starts working again, when they start reviewing all these cases, I think the number of rejections will increase several times over. For some reason, I don't even doubt it. So the situation is extremely serious. In other words, you could say that America has officially closed itself off from refugees, from everyone in general, and now we don't know how long this will last. Well, friends, we'll keep an eye on updates. If you're interested, subscribe to the channel, hit like, and you won't miss anything.